Welcome to the Bernard Lee Poker Show. We are very fortunate to have this guest. This gentleman has been on the show before, but has done a lot of things since he's been on last time. He is a two-time bracelet winner, GPI Player of the Year in 2016. He's won over $34.5 million. That's not a typo, folks. $34.5 million. He is in the top 10 all-time earnings for his career, and most of it has happened over the last several years. He just won the 2021 United States Poker Open, and he is now officially a back-to-back champion. Of course, in 2020 there was no US Poker Open, but in 2019 he won the final event. He needed to win it, not only to win that event, but also to become USPO champion. He did that and overtook Sean Winter. And now in 2021, he won it again by winning 3 titles, almost a back-to-back-to-back, incredibly. And after winning those 3 titles, he is now 2021 US Poker Open champion. A mouthful. By the way, I probably could go on for a while too, but we got to get to the interview, and I'm really pleased to have on David Peters. David, thanks for joining us once again here on the Bernard Lee Poker Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You are really known as one of the best players out there. And, you know, a lot of times people will talk about it. It's nice to be mentioned in that same sentence, that same breath as other players. It's not you being mentioned anymore. It is you are in that sentence and breath all the time. It has been an incredible ride from when you first started playing back in the early 2000s. You played a lot on the circuit. You and I played a lot with each other back then. And then your rise was really meteoric right around the 2015, 2016 timeframe. Just to put in perspective for people, from 2006 is when your first Hendon Mob cash was in, to 2014, you earned $4.3 million. Still an incredible amount of money. But since 2015 to today, you've earned almost $30 million. So you can see that dramatic rise in your earnings, but also your buy-ins, because you are playing in tournaments that are often in the 6 figures, forget the 5 figures. So before we get into a lot of this so people can understand, I'd love for my listeners to kind of understand how you got started in poker almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, I just was watching it on TV, watching, WSOP episodes, and, was fascinated by it, and kind of started reading up a little bit about it online. And then, kind of started playing with my brothers, playing with some friends at home. And yeah, we were just kind of, playing low stakes, enjoying it. I had a knack for it. So I would kind of look for different websites out there that offered free roll tournaments, because, I didn't have a bankroll. And,
Right.
And so basically I was just kind of looking for bonuses, or just like kind of just scouring the internet for any sites that could, like, you could play tournaments for no buy-in, but you could still win money. So
Right.
I found one that I would play every Sunday, and there was like 1,000 people, and first place was like $600. So I played it every Sunday, would make a few runs here and there. And then I won it one time. So now I had, $600 bankroll, or 700, or whatever. And yeah, I just started playing low stakes, like $5 sit and goes. And
Right.
so yeah, I just started grinding those, and, built it up from there.
It must have been, you look back, that $600 win, that probably was one of the highest points in your career, even at these 20 years, because it must have been so exciting to win that 600 for the first time.
Oh yeah, I was ecstatic.
Yeah.
That was for sure. That was a big moment for my career. Yeah, I was so thrilled, because I was, always been like trying to kind of break in and have a bankroll, and so I could get in and play. But yeah, so to win that was huge.
You look backwards in time, had that not happened, and, maybe you went for another 6 months to a year and just, it just doesn't work out. right? I mean, could you have stopped playing?
It's tough to know exactly how it would have went, but I think at that time I was, I was really into the game, and I was like,
Yeah.
really enjoyed it. So I think I would have, one way or another, probably, broken onto the scene, I guess. But yeah, I mean, you never know. It's tough to know. Maybe kind of it dies down, or you stop caring so much, you don't have a bankroll to play, and then maybe you get into something else.
Right.
Maybe get a job or something like that. So yeah, it's tough to know. Yeah, it could all be way different if I didn't win that. You never know.
So safe to say you're kind of moneymaker effect poker baby.
Yeah, I think I started like the year before. I think it was
Yeah.
Varconi when Varconi.
Marconi, of course. Yeah.
I think those were the episodes I originally started watching, and that's when I started getting into it. But
Yeah,
yeah.
that amazingly that was for me. Varconi's year was my year. Him, Julian Gardner, Russell Rosenblum, those guys were the one. I don't know if you remember that year. Russell Rosenblum, he got knocked out in sixth, and then went over to the commentary booth with Gabe Kaplan. This was prior to Lon and Norm. And there was one hand where he was talking it through, and he said, he's got something like Queen Jack. And when I was watching it, I was like, how can he know he have Queen Jack? I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. And then the guy flipped over Queen Jack. And I was like, wait a second, how in the world could he know that? And I was still somewhat novice to hold him because I was a big stud guy. And so that was the moment when he did that I said, you know what, I got to start learning this game a lot more. So I'm with you. The Varconi, I know Phil gave Varconi a lot of grief online. The Queen 10, that was his big hand back then.
Mhm.
But yeah, I remember the Varconi thing. That's funny that you did that. So you obviously are playing a lot leading up to it. You're playing on the circuit a lot. As we mentioned, we played a lot together. In the early years, how did you learn the game? Were you learning it playing just over and over, hands over, whether it was online or live? Were you doing training? What were you doing early on in your career to kind of get through? I'm sure what you look backwards or some of the silly moves or some of the mistakes that you made.
I was looking at a lot of like hand histories. I was on forums, 2+2, pocket fives, kind of just, reading, different things I could find on the internet, strategy, and stuff like that, talking with some friends. But yeah, it was kind of mostly just through playing and just through getting repetitions in and just getting a bunch of hands in. But yeah, I think that was mostly it early on.
And early on, what was the, kind of schedule? Was it primarily just following the circuit or, how would you determine your schedule? Or would it just be whatever the next one is, I'm off to the next one? Because you did travel in the US, but you traveled overseas as well. You went over, wherever it was, whether it was St. Kitts or whether it was Monte Carlo or PCA or things like that. Well, kind of how did you determine your schedule in the early years of your career?
Yeah, I was pretty much just looking anywhere that I could play. I was playing, before I was 21 live. So yeah, I was kind of just looking for different places that I was able to play. I just had the itch to, because I couldn't play most things in the US. So I just always looking at the schedules, seeing what options there were out there, and just kind of, yeah, just trying to travel and play as much as I could.
Right. So what year did you turn 21?
What? 08?
Oh eight. So 08, that's when you could pretty much go anywhere you wanted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then when, as you're slowly starting to make your decisions and obviously start playing more and more, now you travel everywhere. And up until now, you've traveled the world. Give a few places to my listeners, maybe the top three places in the world that just are phenomenal to play at for whatever reason, whether it's venue, whether it's the the location that you can be a tourist, whether it's the players. I don't really care. Explain why you chose those places, but what are the top 3 places that right now you're like, oh, I'd love to go back there?
Well, as far as venue goes, the PokerGo Studio, that's my favorite place to play.
Neat.
I don't know if it's the favorite city, but
Yeah.
it's so comfortable. It's just just such a well-run tournament, and you have your own space, and like you're not by slot machines and all that, and so like,
Right.
free food and everything. So that is basically just the perfect environment to play. But as far as like cities to travel to, I've always loved Barcelona.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was, I mean, and there's great action, great city. A lot of, the food is great right on the beach,
Right.
fun atmosphere. Melbourne was a really cool city. I like the vibe there.
Huh.
Well-ran tournaments.
Yeah.
They love poker over there. Where else? Maybe Prague. Prague was a cool city.
Oh, really?
I haven't been there. I haven't been there in a few years, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's a fun city. Big turnouts for the tournaments.
Right.
A lot of things to do. I would usually go in December, so it was just beautiful, like snow everywhere, and it was just a fun city.
Sure.
But yeah, I think those are three up there for sure.
Yeah. Now, what's interesting, we'll get to your USPO wins because we really kind of have to go over both of them because they were so close and back to back. But one of the things that I'd really want to talk to you about, and we're talking with David Peters, who just recently won the 2021 United States Poker Open and has won back to back as he won the 2019 as well, is obviously everyone was affected last year by COVID. And March was the time where the world shut down. And amazingly for us, people would never have imagined, but casinos shut down and everything shut down. Tell me a little bit about where you kind of were when you heard that suddenly everything was shut down and the world changed for you.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was in Vegas. I'm at my place in Vegas, and yeah, I kind of just didn't really go outside much, didn't do much. The places were locked down. It was kind of just working a lot, basically. Just getting a lot of like poker preparation done and things like that, and just kind of just using that time to really focus and put in work. But yeah, it was a strange time.
Had you been playing? Because I know the WPT had some events in LA prior to that, LAPC, the WPT Gardens Poker. They also had at Shooting Star. Were you at any of those events prior to it?
No, I actually didn't play any of those. I think I was still unsure about the whole COVID situation. We're
Right.
just playing it safe. That's poker tournament is that could be a questionable thing to do, and during that time when no one really knows what was going on. So I just decided to avoid that altogether. And so I hadn't played poker. I hadn't played live poker until I think the last one I played at that point was like in December.
Yeah.
At a couple of tournaments at Bellagio, but yes, I didn't play anything after that.
So obviously it happens. Now the world changes, everything shuts down for a little bit, but the World Series does announce that they're going to have an online version, whether in the US or overseas, GG Poker. Also, Poker Masters does some stuff online as well, and you played in a lot of these events. What kind of was the thought process? Was it to go overseas? I know that, well, you had to do this, but a lot of countries weren't taking people because of COVID. So how did you decide? I know you went to Mexico. How did you decide? And was it pretty much the only place you could go to?
Yeah, I mean the options were very limited. I mean, I was looking at like like places where Americans were allowed to travel, and it was pretty much Mexico was it. I mean, there was a couple other like random countries in Europe, I think. But yeah, the options were very limited. So,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, so I know I always liked Mexico anyway, so it worked out. So I ended up going down there.
So
But yeah,
where'd you end up going?
I was in Playa del Carmen.
And did you
Yeah.
go with other people or just by yourself, or how'd you end, and how long were you there?
I went with, well, originally went by myself, then a few friends came, and then I knew some poker players from there from before, so
Hmm.
so I ended up, so I knew a good amount of people there, but yeah, I was there for, I mean, a year or so. I was there for a
Wow.
while. Yeah.
Was that the original plan? I mean, obviously, no one knew what COVID scenario was, but was the original plan just to stick it all out, or was it just I'll go for a few months and come back?
I had no plan. My plan was I was on like the 1 month plan, like 1 month at a time, and figure it
Yeah, yeah,
out.
yeah.
So I just went for a month, and then decided to stay for another month, and then see how the world's looking. And I stayed for another
Yeah.
month, and I just kept doing that basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how was it down there with regards to the world of COVID? Obviously, here in the U.S., it was kind of funny with the toilet paper shortages and all these different weird scenarios. What was it like down there in Mexico? Curious to hear what it was like there.
I think it was, things were shut down for a while, but then I think that they eventually started opening back up, much sooner than other places,
Huh?
obviously. But yeah, I mean, you know, um, yeah, they were trying to get back to normal. I think there's a lot of tourists there, so maybe they couldn't afford to lock down. But and a lot of like, there's still a lot of a lot of protocols, a lot of like you had to wear a mask everywhere. You had to, um, the usual. But no, yeah, a lot, and then some places were still locked down, were still shut down. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was kind of start more back to normal then, I guess.
So you're saying that there were some tourists coming down later on as COVID continued to progress?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was, yeah. I think that was a kind of like a place for people to kind of get away from the craziness
Yeah, yeah,
of the
yeah.
U.S. where they couldn't leave their house or this or that, and
Right.
working. You can go there. You can at least get some fresh air and hang out on the beach, and whether you're actually going to bars or restaurants or whatever, there's
Right.
still nice options. So a good place to relax and kind of get away from things.
Yeah,
So that, I think,
you can easily be 6 feet apart on the beach than in an apartment. It's a lot harder in that scenario.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
So what was the kind of indication to come back? Like what made you come back to the US after being there for over a year? It's kind of like maybe just stay for a while longer, but what made you say, okay, I'm going to come back now. I'm okay with it.
By that time, Vegas was back to normal, and mainly the USPO was coming up, and I wanted to defend my title. I wanted to get back to those. I was itching to get back to live poker. It had been over a year and a half since I
Right.
played any poker, so I was kind of itching to get back in there.
So,
So yeah,
so,
so I decided to come back.
so you basically just came back fairly recently for just the USPO about a month or two ago.
Yeah, I think I got back the day before USPO started.
Wow. 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 Crazy. So, what was the schedule like for you while you were in Mexico? Was it just online all time, nonstop, or did you just play in the big tournaments, or were you playing a lot of cash online as well? What was kind of your world down there, or was it just hey, it was a great vacation and played some tournaments here and there?
I was playing a lot. I think early on, I was playing a lot. Mostly tournaments. I was playing a lot of cash games for a while there online. But then those kind of died down, and so it was mostly tournaments while I was there. But no, I was playing a lot. The action was pretty good. Was working out. Doing a lot of work away from playing as well. And
Right.
then, but then, at some point, I kind of took a little break and slowed down. So I kind of It was kind of a mix. There was sometimes where I was playing nonstop all day, every day. Sometimes where I was relaxing and kind of needed a break when like the action slowed down and maybe there wasn't a big online series going on or something like that.
Sure,
So it
sure.
was kind of up and down as far as how much
Right.
I was playing, but
And like you said, there were some big online series that were going on. There was, super high roller bowl online, the World Series, WPTs, and obviously the WSOP, the GG poker was there. And hey, you won your first bracelet back in 2016. You picked up your second bracelet in this. Not a bad way to spend COVID protocol, right?
yeah, that was nice. Yeah, that was a fun event too. That's like that's a 10K heads up event. That was like a fun to battle with so many like great players, and
Right.
so yeah, that was and then battle, and then the final matchup versus Adamo. He's obviously a great player, so that was a
Right.
fun way to win it. But yeah, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was trying to win his third bracelet. You're trying to win your second bracelet. Two of the best players in the world, obviously, going at it. Were there ever any issues with regards to getting money online? Because some of these buy-ins, I mean, they're huge, massive buy-ins. Obviously, for WSOP in the U.S., it's as easy as just going to the cage. But now that you're overseas, was it all set up anyway for a lot of these sites, or not a big deal?
Um, Sometimes it could be difficult, but no, I mean it's not too big of an issue. There's a lot of people looking to trade. They have excess money on one side or excess
Oh, okay. Yeah,
hit.
yeah.
You can find people to trade with, and just it can be annoying moving money around like that. But yeah, I guess it wasn't too big of an issue.
Yeah, 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 yeah. David, before we start talking about USPO, which has been such a successful tournament for you, and as you had mentioned, one of your favorite venues at the PokerGo Studio, wanted to talk a little bit about the ride. We had talked about your early career playing a lot of um, circuit events, etc. But one of the things I want to talk about is kind of like that 2011 to 2015, 16 period where it was you were still playing and then that rise. But one of the big events that happens in everyone's career is online poker. Black Friday, April 15th, 2011. Obviously, the world changes drastically. You can't play as much online and have to play, if you are going to, you're going to have to go overseas. What was your decision, back in 2011, 10 years ago? Incredibly, it's amazing to think that it was 10 years ago, but what kind of happened for you? What was your decision? Was it, do I just stop playing? Do I focus on live? Do I go overseas to play in some events? Kind of what was your decision when that, obviously, momentous day happened?
Yeah, I think once that happened, I kind of just figured I would really hit the live circuit harder
Yeah.
just and just go full time that route, and hope that things came back online or kind of see what happened. But yeah, I think my mindset was just all right. Well, I'm gonna just focus on live poker.
So, focusing on live poker, obviously, starting out, you're playing in a good number of events, playing at the World Series. Were you in Vegas primarily at that time? Because I know you're originally from Ohio. Did you relocate to Vegas during that time frame, or were you already there?
No, I was living in Ohio at that time, and I was mostly in Ohio and traveling to live stops here and there. But yeah, no, I hadn't moved to Vegas then yet.
So, obviously you're playing a lot throughout the world. You're playing in EPTs, you're playing in WSOPs, and playing the circuit. What do you feel like was that big kind of change in your career? Your big moment. I remember talking to you because I think we played the main event that year together. We were sitting right next to each other. 2015, the $500,000 buy-in at the Super High Roller Bowl. You took fifth for $1.5 million, and we were chatting that whole first day about it. We were talking about the event, and I remember one person across the table was saying like, "What are you guys talking about?" and we had just met. Yeah, well, you just finished fifth in the 500K, and I think one person at the table was like, "No, you're joking." Like, no, no, seriously, he really did. So, David, what do you feel was that moment? Like, what made it switch over to that? Hey, I just won $1.5 million, and now I'm going to start playing in these bigger tournaments and playing against legitimately the best players in the world in all of these high roller events. What do you feel was that kind of aha moment for you?
Um, I don't know if there was an aha moment. I think my first like super high roller was I was in Atlantic City playing at Borgata playing some series, and I was going to go straight to Monaco right after that. And I was just kind of looking at the schedule, and there was 100K, but it was like really soon come. Like I had to get there to be able to play it. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, well, maybe I should try and sell and see if I can get in there. At the time I felt like, confident in my game and everything. I hadn't played one of those type of tournaments before, but so, so I reached out to some people, was able to sell enough action, and I flew there. I pretty much went straight from like the airport to the tournament. And yeah, it was so that was like an interesting experience. But so early on it was like, it was weird playing such a tournament, for the first time. But then
Right.
the more I played, and the more the day went on, the more like it felt like, like I belong here. Like I've prepared a lot for something like this. And yeah, so I think maybe then, like, just, I didn't cash in that, or I didn't like make a run or anything, but I think it just it just felt like, I think I feel like I belong here. And I know maybe some of these guys are more well known or this or that, but I think maybe that was one of those moments where I felt like, yeah, I think I could continue playing these kind of stakes, and I think I'll do well.
You talked a little bit about it when you're early on in your career, you're playing a lot and talking with players, et cetera. As the years have gone by over the last 5-6 years where you're playing in these big events, are you doing other types of training? Are you, doing online? What other things are you doing to keep up? Because the poker world changes so much, obviously. Are you playing a lot online? What are you doing to just keep your game so sharp and continue to be one of the top players in the world?
Yeah, these days, I mean, for the last, many years, I've spent a lot of time with like, working with these programs and kind of running simulations for all these different situations, and just, kind of just constantly like refining and, working on like pre-flop spots and post-flop situations and final table play, heads up play. It's all these different areas, but I think that was something that I didn't do enough early on in my career. Early on in my career, I was just so play, just focused
Right.
on trying to win the tournament, trying to get that bankroll boost so I could, trying to hit that big score. And like, so there's just a lot of time spent traveling and just playing. I was still, studying. I'm still studying a decent amount, but I think the ratio between play and study wasn't where it should have been, and it was too heavily, focused on playing. But I think kind of once I started playing more, like once I started playing more high rollers, or like thinking about getting into the high roller scene, I was like, it was kind of, realized that I need to really put a lot more time in outside of playing
Right.
to be really prepared, to play against fields like that. So I think once I kind of started playing those is when I really just put in a ton of work outside of playing and had a better balance of play and study. And
So
I think that's when I started to really, kind of take my game to the next level.
so talk a little bit, especially for our listeners, what is that study that you are doing now? Because I think a lot of people obviously don't understand that because they don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, there's programs. There's a program called like PO Solver. There's another program called Munker Solver for, pre-flop and other situations. But yeah, I mean, you can set up simulations and you can run different spots. You can kind of see how the computer would play certain situations. But I think the main thing is when you run these simulations is you can see the reasons why, like, the computer would do this with this type of hand, and it opens up your mind. And you start thinking about why I should play a hand this way, or why this type of hand should do this or that. And that kind of, really helps your thought process, and it helps you think deeper about the game. Just kind of looking at all those different, different things that maybe you thought you'd done differently, your whole career, or you thought this hand should be played this way. And then now you see that the computer does it the opposite way. And then you start to really think about it. And then you might realize that, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I need to fix that leak in my game. And so,
Right.
yes, just constantly kind of looking at all different situations to make sure you don't have any leaks. And if you have them, you just keep trying to plug them.
And then obviously setting up different situations. Are you utilizing games or hands that you had on during a tournament of some sort, and just kind of plug it in and be like, let's see, did I play it the right way? Or maybe I should have played it another way, or someone else played it this way against me. I don't know if that's the way I would have played it. Let's see what the solver says.
Yeah, exactly. I would a lot of times I would take notes, like in my phone. I would just kind of write down the hand history and then look at the situation after the tournament, or the next day, or whatever, and just kind of see if I played it well, see if my opponent played it well, and just kind of really think about the spot. And just kind of a lot of I would do that quite a bit, just to kind of see if how people are playing, if they're maybe making mistakes, and thinking about ways that I can adjust my play based on how they're playing. If I see that someone's too loose in situations or too tight in situations, and now I know I need to adjust my strategy and exploit that. Yeah,
and you're sort of answering my next question, in the sense of, because you're doing these solvers, and the assumption would be is, and tell me if I'm correct in the statement, that the players that you're playing at USPO, the majority of them are using these solvers. So being that the majority of them are using the solvers, at the very least, you guys are all kind of thinking similarly. Now, you obviously can adjust accordingly, and that's the kind of mind games that go on. But when you're playing in a different field, like when you won the 2016 WSOP $1,500 bracelet, that field has 1,860 players. Suffice it to say that the majority of those players are not using PO Solver. And so you can now see how they played a hand and realize they probably don't know the stuff in the solver, and then you adjust your game accordingly, because you can't play the game exactly the same way against those. Like people say, you can't bluff someone who doesn't know they're being bluffed.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think a big thing in poker is knowing your opponents and adjusting to different kind of player types. I'm going to play, considerably different when I'm at a table full of elite pros than if I'm at a table full of, maybe weaker rags or amateurs, or you're always looking for ways to exploit the way people are playing. So if you're at a table and everyone's folding too much, then you're going to play hands that, theoretically aren't supposed to be played, but in normal circumstances. But now you make that adjustment, and now you start playing a lot more aggressive. Or if you're at a table and people are just punting chips left and right, and then now you're going to tighten up. And so so much of poker is making those adjustments, and not being a robot and just playing one style all the time. You need to constantly be bouncing around depending on who you're up against. And if you can, so paying attention to how people are playing or what kind of things they're doing, that's going to help you make the correct adjustments. Because if you're just playing it, so it's not as simple as just doing what PO Solver would do, because they're doing that based on the assumption that their opponent is playing perfectly, or whereas obviously that's no one plays perfectly. So and a lot of people play very far from perfectly. So it's kind of, you're always just kind of trying to make those adjustments.
Yeah. So would it be fair to say that, you know, when you are there, there aren't situations that it's just like automatic. It can be this or that. There are so many different scenarios that can happen and how you adjust your game. And like you said, being the best players in the world, you need to adjust your game. But this is one I've talked with a lot of the players on tour, et cetera. And one of the things that I think a lot of amateurs are is that they're afraid to be wrong or afraid to kind of make that bluff and be embarrassed and be like, oh, look, I'm being called. And would you feel it's fair to say that, listen, if you feel like it's the right play, even though it is a bluff, if it's the right play and you're caught, so be it. Turn your hand over. It is what it is, and maybe you can even take that to your advantage later on in the tournament.
I mean, yeah, I think that's a very important, attribute to have is being able to just do what you think is the correct decision. I mean, everyone's going to make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes all the time. I make mistakes every day. Every pro makes mistakes every day. That's how poker is. You're never going to play perfectly, but I think a very important, key to being successful is just going with what you think is correct and actually pulling the trigger, and you come to you go through your thought process and you come to a decision, and then you decide that this going all in is the most profitable play, and then actually going with it and not you know being scared of the moment or scared of making a mistake, or maybe scared of like it being a bad bluff or
Right.
anything like that, or scared that people who invested in you are gonna think you punted or this or that. I mean, so I think that's important to just kind of block all that out and just play your game and do what you think is the correct way to play, regardless of what the situation is, whether you're early in a tournament or you're deep in a life-changing tournament. And ultimately you have to just try and do your best to make the decisions that you think are correct and go with it.
And I think that people don't realize that the world of poker, there's a lot of failure in the world of poker. You don't cash every single tournament you play in. You unfortunately don't cash in the majority of the events that you play in. Did you play in all 12 of the United States, the USPO events?
No, I think I played 9. I skipped the mixed games and one of the PLOs. I only played one PLO and then all the no limits. So I was
Right.
in all.
So there are 9 events there. You win 3, you cash in one other, so you're 4 for 9. That is a phenomenal week. This isn't a week that's a normal week. Would you say that that's fair to say?
Oh yeah, yeah. This. Yeah, it's definitely not a normal week. You don't just win
Right.
3 tournaments in a row. That's not.
So,
So
so
yeah.
when you played in the World Series last year, what I'm trying to do is give perspective to a lot of people in the world in the world of poker because they see your results. For people who are jumping on Hendon Mob right now and kind of looking at it, right? So you cashed in what was it like 8 events last year during the World Series for the online version of it on GG. How many events did you play on GG last year?
I don't even remember how many events there were. I think I played most of the no limit ones.
Right, right.
I forget. I don't remember how many total events there were. But yeah, no, I played a lot.
So I think that there were 53 on GG, so I'm sure that there were some PLOs. So let's just make it easy and say like 48 or so. I mean, that's still 1 in 6. Even if it was 40, it's 1 in 5.
Yeah.
I think to put into perspective to everyone is it's not like David's cashing in every single event. He still doesn't cash in some of them. And so just putting into what everyone thinks about the elite players in the world, you still have issues, whether you go card dead or whether you're in a bad seat or whether a bluff goes awry or whatever it is, things don't go well all the time. And people just have to continue to start trying to play their best that they can. Talk to a circuit grinder, talk to someone who's still learning how to playing in their local game, whether it's a bar league or whether their home game or something like that. And they've just come up to you and said, David, how do I get better? Like, just how do I get better? What would kind of 3 pieces of advice that you would give to somebody who's really, they're just starting out, but you watch them play, you're like, you got some potential. If you do these things, you'll get to another level, not to the level you're at probably, but get to that level. What would some advice be from your side?
I would say just try and find ways to study. Find training sites, or watch these final table replays, or watch where you get to see whole cards of all these great players, and try and learn from it. Try and take notes, write down, try and think about why people are doing a certain thing, and why, like, what reasons there might be for a great player making this play, whereas you would have done the opposite.
Right.
And just try and just be a student of the game. Try and pay attention when you're playing. Write down hands to look at later while you're playing, and just go over the hand later that night or the next day, and just try and really think about why this a certain play is good, or why maybe you made a mistake in this hand, maybe you should have done something differently. Just try and find any ways to study and work on your game. And like you said, you have to realize that, there's so much losing in poker, especially these really huge field tournaments. There's a lot of variance, so you can't let that get you down. You have to realize that you enter a tournament, if you're prepared, and you think you're a good player, then you're making money in the long run by entering the tournament. But you have to understand that it could be a while before you see the results, because there's a lot of variance and things like that. So you just have to not let that get you down. Keep pushing, and know that if you keep working hard, keep getting better, keep preparing, that your time will come.
Right. Well, I think that's definitely good advice. A lot of people are just, they struggle when they don't cash in 4 or 5 tournaments in a row. And especially when they don't play those as rapidly as you might, right? So like for the GG poker, you said you played in almost all the no limits last summer. That was over like a 6 weeks period, and you played in maybe 40 to 45 events. Other people who are working full time and they can't devote all their attention to this, they may play 5 or 6 events over a month, maybe even a month and a half. You don't cash in 5 events in a row, it feels like it's a month and a half to 2 months. It feels like forever. For you, not cashing in 5 events in a row could be 3 days.
Yeah.
And for you, 3 days later, you're like, oh, well, whatever, just get back to it, and et cetera. I also think that a lot of people need to be honest with their game. A lot of people think that they are getting unlucky, and sometimes they're just not making the right play, and they just have to really look at their game a little bit more. And it sounds like that's obviously one of the big things that you did when you look at these solvers and talk to your friends and all that, right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to. Yeah, I think being honest with your game, and not thinking that you're better than everyone, or not getting cocky. I think that's something that can really hold you back, if you have that mindset that I already know. Like, yeah, I've been studying nonstop for many years, and I know that there's a lot of room for improvement for myself.
Right.
So yeah, I think having that, not thinking that like you've solved it, you figured the game out, or like
Right.
like, oh, I know exactly what to do.
You're a superstar.
Yeah. I know exactly that. So it's like, so just, so don't get in that mindset. There's always room for improvement, and you just can't think you're the best or whatever.
Well, listen, David, I really appreciate it. It's amazing. We've been talking so long. We haven't even talked about USPO. Is it okay if you come back next week and we'll talk more about your USPO victories, not only 2021, but also 2019?
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Well, David, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. David Peters here. Hopefully, a lot of my listeners, you've gotten some great advice on really kind of how to work on your game. But when we come back next week, we're going to talk more with David about his victories, 2019, 2021 USPO, and talk a little bit maybe more about his WSOP bracelet wins too when we return on the Bernard Lee Poker Show. And as always, may you always go in with the best hand, and may you never get unlucky. Good night, everybody.